When most of us think about yoga, we picture these incredible, flexible poses. But what if I told you that's just scratching the surface? The real deal, the actual foundation of yoga, it isn't about the body at all. Nope, it's all about the mind. So let's dive in and see what that really means.
So let's just ask it outright. Is yoga just about twisting yourself into a pretzel? I mean, that's what we see everywhere, right? But the original ancient purpose of yoga wasn't about getting a good workout. It was actually designed to solve a really deep, fundamental human problem. And that right there is the key. The ancient texts, they talk about yoga as this complete system, almost like a kind of technology for your mind. And it's a technology designed to get to the absolute root of human suffering. Now, this fundamental problem, it has a name, the klesas. You can think of them as these mental, emotional hangups or impurities in the mind. Things like ego, attachment, jealousy, fear, you get the picture. And according to yogic philosophy, all of our suffering comes from these states, which are all rooted in this basic ignorance of who we really are. And get this, here's where it gets really interesting. Our inner world, these kleshas, they directly create our outer world. They are the seeds that grow into our actions, and by extension, they're the seeds of our karma. So as long as these little impurities are hanging out in our minds, they're going to bear fruit in our lives. And a lot of times that fruit is pain and struggle. So if the kleshas are the problem, then what's the solution? Well, lucky for us, the sage Patanjali laid out this super clear step-by-step guide to basically dismantle them. It's a roadmap out of suffering, and it's known as the eightfold path. Okay, so here they are, all 8 steps or limbs of the path. And I want you to look really closely here. What are the first 2 steps? Way before you ever get to the physical postures, the asanas down there at number 3, you have to establish ethical standards and self-disciplines. These are the absolute, non-negotiable starting point. And this really says it all. Trying to build a serious meditation practice without first setting up a solid ethical base, well, it's like building a beautiful house with no foundation. It doesn't matter how great it looks on the outside, it's unstable, and eventually it's going to come crashing down. So let's actually look at that foundation, starting with the very first layer, the yamas. You can think of these as the ethical rules for how we deal with the world around us. So this foundation, it's got 2 parts. The yamas are all about our behavior with other people, our outward-facing code of conduct. And then the niyamas, they're about our relationship with ourselves, our inward-facing personal rules. You really, really need both.
Okay, so there are 5 yamas. We've got Ahimsa, which is basically non-harming, Satya, which means truthfulness. Then there's Asteya, not stealing, Brahmacharya, which is all about moderation and using your energy in the right way, and finally, Aparigraha, or non-possessiveness, basically letting go of greed.
All right, so once we have these guidelines for how we interact with the external world, we have to turn inward. The second part of that solid foundation is the niyamas. These are the rules for our own personal growth. And there are 5 niyamas too. Satya, which is all about purity and cleanliness of your body and your mind. Santosha, which is contentment, just being okay with what is. Tapas, which is that fire of self-discipline. Svadhyaya, which means self-study, really digging deep inside yourself. And last but not least, Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrender to a higher power. Now, you might be listening to all this and thinking, okay, these 10 principles, they sound like a pretty nice set of suggestions. But here's the thing. According to the Yoga Sutras, they are way, way more than that. They're described as a great vow. The Sanskrit term for it is mahavratam. And what this means is that these principles aren't just for when it's convenient or for when it's easy. No way. They're meant to be a universal, non-negotiable duty that we commit to 100%. And believe me, when the texts say universal, they mean it. This vow applies no matter what your social class is, where you live, what century you're in, or what's going on in your life. It's totally timeless and unconditional. And the stakes for keeping this vow, they are incredibly high. Patanjali just lays it out with this chilling clarity. He says that any unethical action, it doesn't matter if you do it yourself, you cause someone else to do it, or you just give it a thumbs up, it always bears the fruit of endless suffering and ignorance. It's like you're just feeding the very kleshas you're trying to get rid of. So here's the real punchline. Practices like breathwork and meditation, they build a ton of personal energy.
But without the ethical foundation of the yamas and niyamas to guide that energy, you don't actually overcome your negative habits, you just give them more horsepower. You could become a more powerful, more effective version of your angry, greedy, or egotistical self and end up causing even more harm to everyone, especially yourself.
So, let's wrap this up by making it personal. Looking at these 10 principles, the absolute bedrock of the entire practice, which one of them really speaks to you right now? If you were to pick just one to take on as your great vow, to really commit to, which one would it be? It's a really powerful question to sit with. Thanks so much for joining me.